phrase "don't judge a book by its cover" was appropriate, it's with the Fiat Multipla. With an exterior described as designed by a group of people who seemingly never met, and an instrument cluster resembling Nightmare on Skull Rock, this isn't a car to easily love, but that's a shame. Under the comical looks lives a truly great car that's made a quantum leap in automotive design like the Beetle, 2CV or Mini before it. Top Gear summed it up best when they named it Car of the Year in 2000 and at the same time the Ugliest Car of the Year. Why did the absurd Multipla morph into the king of bland in the 2000s? And why did its designer have the last laugh? This is the wacky and crazy Fiat Multipla story. The Multipla wasn't the first Multipla. In 1956, Fiat took the 600 and made it bigger, allowing it to hold 2 cramped people in the front and up to 4 in the back. It was a small but very practical vehicle that had a long life as a taxi in many parts of Italy. Production ran for 13 years and they sold almost 130,000 of them. So when Fiat was looking to make a new practical vehicle in the 1990s, it seemed logical to reuse the well-known Multipla name. The new car was designed by Roberto Giolito, so you can hang the credit or blame on him, depending on whose side you're on. He'd been hired into Fiat in 1989 and straight away started creating designs that pushed the boundaries. The first was the compact 3-seater city car, the Downtown, in 1993. He was experimenting not only with different styles, but different materials and manufacturing techniques. This tiny electric car had a plastic body with an aluminium chassis. Giolito was clearly trying to push the boundaries in making striking, practical cars that would rise above the humdrum econobox cars of the period. A year later came the Zeek prototype. This showed off his penchant to be even more radical, with high-mounted front lights and a cutaway rear design foreshadowing the big bottom Renault Megane by 8 years. For the Multipla, Giolito wanted a total rethink of the car. Large and medium-sized MPVs or multi-purpose vehicles were becoming popular in Europe, and the Fiat design team discussed how they could get large MPV space out of a more compact package. Full-size MPVs were almost 5 meters or 16.5 feet long, but the team challenged themselves to create a practical package in less than 4 meters or 13 feet. Cars this short couldn't hold more than 5 seats, but no one had tried making the car higher and wider. If cars like the Rolls-Royce could be wide, why not push the boundaries a little? With a wider car, the concern was that it would be too wide for tight supermarket parking spots, but the Multipla was only 15 centimeters or about 6 inches wider than MPVs like the Renault Megane Scenic, and it was 17 centimeters or about 7 inches shorter with a larger boot. Using new manufacturing techniques, they could use a space frame design to make a cost-effective flat floor. This allowed them to place seats and interior features anywhere they wanted. 6 identical seats were used, and each could be folded to turn it into a table or removed altogether. Even with all these seats, there was still a large boot. Take the middle seats out and you could carry something long. Take 5 seats out and turn it into a cavernous single-seater van. This practical design had been pioneered by the Renault Espace in the 1980s, but this took the minivan concept to a new level. It's easier to see why the Multipla became the favourite of Italian taxi drivers, like the Fiat 600 Multipla before it. The controls were set in the middle, like the BMW's new Mini released around the same time. The controls looked odd, but were simple and straightforward, and big storage bins were available in front of the driver and passenger. On the outside, large mirrors, similar to those you see on trucks, meant there were no blind spots when overtaking and made parking a breeze. And the wall of windows around the car with low sills helped with visibility. The design team thought of every little detail. For example, the door handles had an extra moulding on the outside to help protect the door when it was opened. And the design team thought outside the box with the engine choices. Petrol and diesel options were chosen, but Fiat also offered a model that could be driven on petrol or LPG or liquid petroleum gas. Cheaper LPG was becoming a popular alternative car fuel around the millennium, with fuel stations popping up all over Europe. Fiat also investigated, but ultimately rejected, fitting the Multipla with a hybrid engine, something Toyota were about to bring into the mainstream with the Prius. Okay, I've gone this far without mentioning the elephant in the room. It's practical and clever, but those looks! Giolito's design had function leading form, and he was happy to have a slightly zany design. What's more surprising is that Fiat's management were happy to go along with this bold automotive statement. Giolito had one bubble pod sitting on top of another and placed headlights on both pods. This gave good front visibility and people could clearly see you coming, but you wouldn't call this car elegant or beautiful, and this is strange coming from an Italian car designer. It produced a bulging rear bottom that looked like two Teletubbies were sitting on each other. But what it wasn't was bland, and for that it should be applauded. Too many cars then and now look the same, chasing the same low drag factor and practical design. Sometimes it can be hard to tell one Econobox from another. The Multipla was shown at the Frankfurt International Motor Show in 1997 to a mixed reception, and in fact Giolito and 5 others drove to the Geneva Motor Show that same year in a Multipla to test its practicality. Attendees probably thought this was just another wacky Fiat concept car like the Downtown and Zeek, and I can imagine reaction when it launched in 1998 was, "You were really going to make that?" At launch, reviewers didn't know quite what to make of this odd-looking car. They applauded its practicality and attention to detail, and it felt good on the road with great handling. Visibility on the Multipla is fantastic, and the driver has a high commanding position. But you could see why reviewers hedged their bets. Would this car be the shape of things to come, like other transformative cars like the 2CV or the Beetle? Yes, it looked like a jelly gone wrong, but cars have come along with odd designs that we now take for granted. For example, the 2003 BMW 5 Series came in for terrible criticism for its headlight design, but we now accept it as normal. Would the Multipla become a design classic? The New York Museum for Modern Art certainly thought so, exhibiting the car there upon its release. But in 1999, when Fiat launched the Multipla first in Italy, then in the rest of Europe, did you really want this car sitting in your driveway? Some loved its striking design, some put up with it for its practicality, but many were put off. The car sold well initially, with 30,000 sold in the first 3 months, but sales faltered quickly. It seems people were won over if they took the time to look at it, but first you had to get them to look at it. It seems Fiat had faith though, as Giolito got a promotion to head designer in 2001. In 2004, the Multipla got a restyle, and the move away from that odd external look shows Fiat thought the external looks were holding it back. But they went too far in toning the styling down. As the Daily Telegraph reported at the time, they were desperately sad that the new Multipla no longer resembles a psychotic cartoon duck. They turned it into the same bland design it was competing with at a time when competitors' cars had integrated some of the Multipla's clever internal design tricks. Suddenly its only big standout feature was the 3 abreast seating, and the Honda FR-V, released the same year, showed that feature wasn't something the public were clamouring for. The Multipla got another reworking in 2006 to commemorate the Turin Winter Olympics. The Subaru Multipla Multiplan had 3 rows of seats, putting the 2 extra ones in the boot, and they added a 3rd set of doors on either side. It showed that if nothing else, the car shell was so rigid that it could have a wall of doors on either side of the car. But it wasn't enough to save the car, and production ended in 2011. So what happened to Roberto Giolito? Did he continue to make strange designs? Well, no. His next project, admittedly with a team of people helping him, was the Fiat 500 in 2007. With this car, Giolito didn't make the same mistake. In fact, he went the other way, making sure the top priority of the car was a beautiful exterior. Only by doing this could you sell customers on the great interior design, and the 500 wasn't just a pretty face. And he also created the Fiat Multipla's successor in 2012, the Fiat 500L Living. The 500L was a larger version of the 500, and the 500L Living was a stretched version made on a new platform. But gone were the Multipla's strange or bland looks, replaced with a cute, friendly 500 shape. The 500L Living is a 7-seater, a truly practical car, but maybe not as cutting edge and practical as the Multipla. But you can still see some of the Multipla in it, with the same rear bulging bottom with a smaller window pod on top, just not as pronounced. On the 500L it looks elegant, showing the old-fashioned Fiat 500 lines. And the public agrees, sales of the 500L Living are much higher than the Multipla for the same period in its life cycle. But that wasn't the end of the Multipla. Like the Rover 75, the design was sold to China in 2007 as knockdown kits. That is, the car was partly assembled, then shipped to China for final assembly. Then when Fiat's production was winding down in 2010, the tooling was sold to China and the car manufactured there as a Zotier M300. I'm sure I pronounced that incorrectly. They even sold an all-electric variant, but sales were modest and production ended in 2013. If you like these videos and want to get early access to new videos or appear in the credits like these fine people, consider supporting me using the Patreon link below, and hit the subscribe button to get notified of new videos. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.